The wise king's decision. In a small kingdom surrounded by high mountains and deep forests, there lived a wise and kind king named King Edward. The people loved him because he always listened to their problems and helped them. His castle stood on a hill, overlooking the beautiful kingdom. One sunny morning, as King Edward was walking through the garden, a group of villagers came to see him. They looked worried and upset. The king welcomed them and asked, "What troubles you, my friends?" A farmer named John stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we have a big problem. There is a dispute between two villages about the water from the river. Both villages need the water for their crops, but there isn't enough for everyone." King Edward thought for a moment. He knew this was a serious issue that needed a fair solution. "Gather the leaders of both villages and bring them to the castle. We will find a solution together," he said. The villagers thanked the king and hurried to bring the leaders. By noon, the leaders of the two villages, Mr. Smith and Mr. Green, arrived at the castle. They greeted the king and sat down in the grand hall. "Please, tell me about the problem," King Edward said. Mr. Smith spoke first. "Your Majesty, our village needs the water to grow our crops. Without it, we cannot feed our families." Mr. Green nodded. "We face the same problem, Your Majesty. Our village depends on the river for our livelihood. We must find a way to share the water." King Edward listened carefully. He understood that both villages were in need. He thought deeply about how to solve the problem without causing more conflict. After a while, the king spoke. "I have an idea. We will build a canal to bring water to both villages. This way, everyone will have enough water for their crops. We will work together to make this happen." The leaders of the villages looked at each other and nodded. "That is a wonderful idea, Your Majesty. We will gladly work together to build the canal," Mr. Smith said. Mr. Green agreed. "Yes, Your Majesty. Thank you for finding a fair solution." King Edward smiled. "Let us start tomorrow. We will gather workers from both villages and provide the necessary tools and materials. Together, we will build the canal and ensure that everyone has enough water." The next day, workers from both villages gathered by the river. King Edward was there to oversee the project. He encouraged everyone and made sure they had everything they needed. The villagers worked hard, digging the canal and placing the stones. Days turned into weeks, and the canal began to take shape. The villagers from both villages worked side by side, sharing meals and stories. They became friends, united by their common goal. Finally, the canal was completed. The water flowed smoothly to both villages, providing enough for everyone. The fields turned green, and the crops grew tall and strong. The villagers were happy and grateful for the king's wise decision. To celebrate the completion of the canal, King Edward invited everyone to a grand feast at the castle. There was delicious food, music, and dancing. The villagers thanked the king for his wisdom and kindness. During the feast, King Edward stood up to speak. "Today, we celebrate not just the completion of the canal, but also the spirit of cooperation and friendship between our villages. Together, we have achieved something wonderful. Let us always remember that by working together, we can overcome any challenge." The villagers cheered and raised their glasses. They knew they were fortunate to have such a wise and caring king. The story of the canal and the wise king's decision spread throughout the kingdom, inspiring others to work together and find peaceful solutions to their problems. King Edward continued to rule with wisdom and kindness. He always listened to his people and helped them in any way he could. The kingdom prospered, and the people lived in peace and harmony. And so, the story of King Edward and the canal became a cherished tale in the kingdom. It reminded everyone of the importance of cooperation, friendship, and wise leadership. The king's legacy lived on, inspiring future generations to lead with kindness and fairness. The villagers never forgot the wise king who brought them together and ensured their prosperity. King Edward's name became synonymous with wisdom and compassion, and his story was told to children as an example of the true qualities of a great leader. The kingdom thrived, filled with happiness and unity, thanks to the wise decisions of their beloved king.